Welcome to Douglas on My Mind show, and today we have with us our finance director and also our assistant city manager, Mr. Charlie Davis, and we're going to be talking about finance and the budget and all things numbers, and hope that you will get a better insight of our financial picture after you watch our Douglas on My Mind show at this time. So we'll be right back after these messages. Welcome back to Douglas on My Mind show, and once again I have with us Mr. Charlie Davis. We call him Charlie, but his actual former name is Charles Davis. He's our assistant city manager, and he's also our finance director. He's been doing a great job for us since he took over this role about 2 or 3 years ago, I believe it has been. So welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, boss.
All right. Yeah. Now you don't have to cover boss on the show. There you go. But obviously, finance is one of those critical things that people really don't really like to hear about, but necessary to talk about in regards to how we financially look in regards to our overall conditions as far as the city. It's about numbers. It's about trying to help people understand where we are, what we're trying to do, what type of financial policies that we're trying to establish, and hopefully trying to address some of the issues that hopefully the services that we're trying to provide are equitable and fair in regards to delivering to U.S. citizens. So we're going to delve into that today. But first and foremost, I guess trying to understand what is the finance department, what is its role, how does it play into what we do each day. As I tell departments and also employees and as well, finance departments probably what we call kind of like an internal department, which it doesn't provide services mostly outside of the city, but it provides services to most of our departments that provide services to those customers and citizens. So what is the role of the finance department in just?
Well, like most places that have a finance department, it's pretty similar, but before we get into that, just kind of talk about, every city is granted a charter by the state of Georgia, and that's how they establish their legitimate role to operate. And in our charter, the finance department and its roles and responsibilities is specifically stated in that. And so if you ever happen to look at our charter, you can go to section 2-251, 252, and 253, and it there lists the department and the different roles there. But like with most finance departments, we're there to make sure bills are paid, budgets are followed and adhered to. We do checks and balances, audits, internal audits. We work throughout the year and become ready for our annual audit that we're getting ready to start for now on our fiscal year 14. We prepare monthly statements. Now a lot of these things are done by the computer. In old age there was a lot of typewriters and Xerox papers and copying and stuff, and now the system makes that easier. We're also challenged or challenged with making sure we have a computer system in place and that does all the general ledger, because the finance GL side of it is the brains of everything. Purchasing feeds into it, utilities feed into it, accounts receivable, accounts payable, all those things feed into your general ledger accounting system, and so we're given that role to make sure that happens.
Well, it sounds like there are a lot of things that y'all are engaged in, notwithstanding those things, but also probably others as well, and a lot of moving parts in relationship to feeding off of about 12 to 15 departments that each day look to y'all to deal with accounts payable, paying the bills for the city, accounts receivable, receiving monies coming in the door, those types of things. So a lot of transactions that have to get balanced, have to be overall made whole at the end of the day, and y'all do a fine job of it. So in regards to your department, how many divisions in relationship do you have in regards to the finance department?
Current right now, we have, I guess, direct account. We have accounts payable, the people who pay the bills. We do AR, where we bill out services. Some of it's to our former employees that have benefits, stuff that we have to bill out for. Some of it is for like airport billing and stuff on fuel sales. We have accounts receivable. We have the overall accounting side of things. Purchasing falls under finance, and then also to information technology services fall under us.
Okay. So obviously a lot of things to deal with there. Probably what is one of the most challenging, if you had to look at now being over this division, the department, excuse me, for a while, which one probably has the most challenging proposition as far as dealing with people and customers and employees?
If it has people associated with it, that's what's the tough part, boss. All of it, because I mean, just like on accounting, at any given moment, we're in 3 budgets. Mm-hmm. We're either preparing a budget, we're either shutting a budget down, or we're either operating in a budget. And like always, we never have enough money. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to figure out where we're going to pay this. We have unforeseen incidents come up, and then you got to pull from here to there to make cover this. Right. And so just timing and money. I mean, that's the.
Mm-hmm. So, with that said, how many employees do you have or staff in regards to facilitate that type of work?
For the IT and purchasing and everything under finance, we have 8 employees.
Okay, that's including yourself?
No, sir, that's 8 besides myself.
Okay. Now, obviously, with the city of Douglas, we have a budget, and each year that budget is developed. And a lot of times when we throw out numbers, really people somewhat are amazed, and even some of our, counterparts, or shall we say colleagues in other communities, are amazed by our budget because it's large numbers to them, but it's a lot of stuff going on in regards to those numbers, so it's just not specific to that. So kind of give us a feel from a summary of numbers, what is our overall budget and how does each one of those categories of general fund and the utilities fits within that?
Our overall budget is $69 million, closing in on $70 million. Now in that is several different funds. Some cities don't have like utilities like we have, so we have probably 5 main areas within that total budget. We have the general fund, which is your public safety, your public works, city hall type activities, non-business like activities fall up under your general fund. That's around $13.5 million. We have our utilities fund, which include electric, water, wastewater, gas, and sanitation. That's almost a $47 million budget. Of that $47 million budget, $31 million is electric, $7 million is the water and wastewater, $5 million is gas, and then about $3 million is sanitation. And of those numbers, a lot of people say, well, y'all bill $31 million in electric. A high proportion of that is the purchase for resale. We have to buy the power and then we turn around and sell the power back, so we don't make $30 million off of electric. Same way with gas and sanitation. We don't make, we have to buy those services and then in turn around and rebuild those services. We have special revenue funds, which is like your splashed, any grant funds that come in, all those total up around around $5 million. We have our health fund, which runs about $2.6 million a year, and then we have a work comp fund that runs around $700,000 to $800,000 a year.
Right. So obviously, one of the challenges that a lot of people, those are large numbers, and it's hard to get people's hands around it. And the 2, electric and gas, which we actually, resell in regards to those generation opportunities of those utilities. So there is a small portion of operating dollars that we operate off of in relationship to that. But the larger piece of that with those 2 enterprise funds are mostly the resale amount that we
Correct.
have. So, obviously, definitely we do go through this budget process from January to around May. Staff would probably like to wrap it up around April as best that they possibly can, not make it so tight at the end of our budget cycle and getting into the end of our budget year. And he's right. One of the things we have with our new software system, I don't know if we had that with our old software system. We had the capability to keep one of our budget years open, close out another one, and start another one. So you could technically have 3 budgets
Going on
at one time. I know that sounds weird, but with technology, you have that ability. And sometimes that does happen where we're crossing the threshold of one, closing out another, and getting ready to start another. So it does happen from time to time. Now, we talked about some of these funds, and I know a lot of times it is Greek to some of our listeners in relationship to they think just a budget is a budget. At my household, I don't have one fund. Well, there's 2 funds. Me and my wife's funds and my wife's funds.
I understand that.
My wife listening, she understands that completely. So really and truly, having multiple funds sometimes is difficult for people to understand, especially with the school system. They may have maybe 1 or 2 funds. The county probably may have multiple funds, maybe 2 or 3, but we probably have 7, if you can think about it, or 5 to 7 in that regard. So what are the different funds and what do they mean in relationship to how we interact with them?
Well, years ago, a lot of your municipalities, counties, school boards across America had different accounting techniques, did things different ways, whatever. So over the years, through GAAP, which is generally accepted accounting practices, a GASB was formed, which is the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. They set out standards, and then in I believe it was 1997, the state of Georgia adopted what they call the Uniform Chart of Accounts, which took GASB and put it into effect for Georgia. Even though we operate under home rule and technically don't have to do an audit, if we want government grants and stuff, we have to abide by DCA's Unified Chart of Accounts in order to be able to get grants and stuff. And so therefore they mandate us we have our audits and stay within the standards that they set. There's 3 types of funds that GASB uniform sets up. One is your governmental activities, which is basically anything that's not business-like activities. Police, fire, public safety, mayor and commission, city managers, finance, IT, all those things that are non-revenue generating activities fall under your governmental funds. You have your proprietary funds, which is business-like activities. Your electric, your gas, your water, your sewer, your trash will fall under those funds. And then you have fiduciary funds, which are like pension funds, health funds, work comp funds, anything where it's not really our money, but we're acting as an agent of and paying things out that would fall under your fiduciary funds.
Right. And I'll tell you a little history to tell you how old I am. As you can see the gray hair on my hair. Back in 1997, I recall this distinctly. When I was finance director once upon a time, and we had to go through the new GASB provision on the House Bill 492, and we had to change all of our accounts numbers to the new GASB rule, and I can't remember if it's 13 now. Is it 13? Say my memory goes beyond. Previously we only had like 10, and then we had to go to 13 or 15 numbers. I can't remember how many numbers now. And each one of those numbers, I'm not going to put them on the spot, but just to summarize that, each one of those identifiable of different functions of those numbers have different purposes in regards to fund, category, department, activity, line items, yada, yada, yada. So, and the hopes of all that was to try to get local governments to have the business model or business look alike in regards to just like what we call profit and loss statements in regards to that. So.
And if citizens go from town to town or auditors come in, your 11s are assets, 12 is your liabilities, 13s are your equities, and so it's kind of a standard. So you can go in and see now within those things there are probably a few differences than when you get
Right.
down into the last levels. But as a whole, you can get in and go and look at anybody's books and know
Right.
where you're supposed to be looking for something. Whereas in the old days, it could be anywhere.
Yeah, and that was the big issue, and he's correct. When I was finance director, obviously that was one of the big things, because everybody's books in relationship to their accounting principles were all